Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to another TMDSAS Office Hours. My name is Suleiman and I am the TMDSAS Support Coordinator. So I want to welcome you guys to, I believe this is, um, not sure which session, but we've been doing office hours every week on Wednesdays at 1. And so the purpose of these sessions are to host a space for applicants to come and ask their questions live by entering your questions into the chat. We'll display them on the screen so that way everyone gets to read them and be able to follow along with us and be able to get some insight as well. Like our old teachers used to say in public school, if you have a question, someone else possibly also has a similar question as you. So this is another platform that we offer for applicants to get their questions answered. You can also send us a message in your TMDSAS application portal at any time. The neat thing about those is that whenever you send a message, it is connected to your application. And so our team is able to go to your message, go straight to your application and be able to help you out wherever it is that you need the help. So let's say you have a question about colleges attended. Our team members can go into your application and be able to locate where the problem might be or where you might be needing help. And so that helps our team be able to personalize that support in that manner. So as you all know, we are already been processing applications. So if you have any questions about when your application will be processed next, I recommend that you take a look at our website. So if you go to www.tmdsas.com, so I'll enter this into the chat. It has on our homepage of the website, it has the processing times for both letters of evaluation and applications. So on the right-hand side, you'll see TMDSAS is currently processing. It has direct upload, interfolio, and applications. So for applications, our team is currently processing applications that were submitted on May 28th. So if you submitted your application on May 30th, just be patient. It's going to take a little bit longer for them to get to your submission date and be able to process the applications that were submitted on that date. So the way our team goes about this is they will process applications as they come in. So if we had 100 submitted on the 28th and then 200 on the 29th, just be mindful that they will process those applications depending on our as quickly as possible, depending on how many applications were submitted. So that is a good way to take a look at where our team is currently processing applications and seeing for yourself, getting an idea of when to expect to hear back on your application being transmitted to the schools. And this information is updated daily, so definitely check that out. The next thing I did want to mention is if you haven't already, please use the application guide as you are working on your application. This application guide was designed for it to mirror the sections of your application. So as you are working on your application on one screen or half of your screen, depending on how many screens you have, and then on the other half, your application guide. As you're filling out your application history, your personal information, those sections in the guide will mirror what's on your application. It'll tell you what the questions are asking for, examples, tips, things that you need to watch out for, look out for to avoid any errors. So that is a resource that is available to you, and we highly recommend that you use along with your application so that you are getting your questions answered. You know exactly what to expect, but also getting that guidance. That can be hard whenever you're just going in blindly and just trying to work on that application and not having that extra additional context that will allow you to fill out your application as best as possible and submitting that quality application. All right, so I do see we have a couple questions into the chat. Go ahead and keep sending your questions our way so that way we can display them on the screen. And our first question here, If taking MCAT on June 22nd, can I still submit my application even if I don't have my MCAT score? Yes, the answer to that is yes. So for your primary application, in order for you to submit, you do not need to have the score received. You do not have to have the letters received. The reason for that is, unlike other application services, TMDSAS wants to make sure that these additional components to your application don't stop you from submitting your application early. So if that is, if you've already completed your application and those are the only other things that are that still need to be completed, you don't have to wait on that to submit your application. The main thing is these extra components are processed separately from your primary application. So we don't need them in order to process the application, and we don't need your application to be processed in order to receive the scores and the letters. So just be mindful of that, and that is why we are a little different than other application services. But don't let those other areas stop you from submitting your application. In fact, whenever you submit your primary application, it is basically getting in line to be processed. And in the meantime, you can work on getting those extra things in, such as your letters and your scores, or making sure that you release your scores as well. Okay, activities. If I am doing an activity that starts in August next May, can I put the same description in both current and planned activities, or should I change them? Great question. So with the activity section in the guide, I'll go ahead and link that here if you guys need that or have not taken a look at that. Just so you're familiar with the structure of how that section is listed out to be able to help you with the activities. So with activities, since it will start before the application deadline, it'll start in May, or it'll start in August actually. Um, that start date, because it is before the application deadline, you will need to list it under current activities. Since you are continuing it to next May, it would also need to be placed into the planned activities. With your descriptions, it's going to be up to you how you want to list that out. And just be mindful that the schools don't really want to see you copy pasting descriptions and seeing those activities listed multiple times. If you're going to list it out multiple times, don't copy and paste your descriptions. Just make sure that it's something different. If you are, some of the guidance that our director has given is if you have been doing, or in this case, you hope to do certain things whenever you start in August, you can list that out in your description. For planned activities, that entry, you can list what you hope to complete or hope to get out of that activity in the future. And so, yes, just reiterating what I mentioned earlier, the difference between current and planned activities can be found in our application guide. So again, if you are starting this activity before the application deadline, it's going to have to go under the current activities. And I'll link that specific section of the guide in here as well so you can refer to it in the future. And that link that I have listed into the chat will also give you the date breakdown for current activities and for planned activities. So if you've already created your chronology of activities, that you can only import your activities once. So if you imported already and you have additional activities that you want to add, or you saw everything and you're like, wait a minute, I have something that goes into here, or hey, I forgot to list this activity. You can go back into those individual sections. For example, if you forgot to list something under your community engagement or healthcare activities, you can go back into those sections and enter the missing activity. However, it will not allow you to re-import any additional activities after the first time that you do it. So I do believe there is like a little description at the top of the page, and it mentions activities will only be imported once. But that is okay because the chronology of activities is an overall summary that the schools get to see in addition to the sections themselves that list out each separate independent category of activities. And so if there's one missing off the chronology, don't worry, it's not a big deal. The schools will be able to see it in the actual category. Okay. So I believe this is about residency. How do we have to submit voter registration card in order to be verified? So yeah, the placeholder information for that is optional. So if you do have it, you can submit it. If not, you don't have to. It's not going to hinder you in any way. So for this question about chronology of activities, again, it's not going to be a big deal. This is just kind of like an overview summary of what you listed in your throughout your application. So this is going to have activities, your terms that you will be attending or have attended in the past regarding your education. And so if you choose not to edit it, it's not going to be a big deal. If you do want to edit it, you can, just because that character count in that summary is 50 character count limit versus your actual descriptions, which are about 300. So it's up to you. It doesn't really matter ultimately because the schools do have access to see the whole description. So if you want to edit it, you can. If you missed it, that's okay. Don't worry. Okay, so my department exam shows up as a course with no credits on my transcript. The area where the credit value would go is blank. How would I input this exam in my TMDSAS application? So if this is going to be a credit by exam course, it sounds like you were given credit for it. So you can list out I with the grade, you can list out credit, but just to make sure we have additional context before we say, hey, this is what you could enter for the credit hours or whatnot, you can send a message in your TMDSAS application portal. So that way you can provide additional context for that. And then our team members could take a look at it. Or also just like, give us more information if this is something that you um, like an example of what this course was for. So I know this is a department exam for a course. I'm assuming this is something that you could be exempt for and not have to take it at your institution. But just additional context might be helpful just to see what the credit like hours would be in that case. As far as the grade would go, that would definitely be credits, so CR. Okay. If I am an EMT that will apply July 2nd, how do I document this position as an ongoing slash planned activity? Again, so if you will start your application in July, and this is an activity that you have been doing, it's going to go under current activities. And if you also plan on continuing this after the application deadline, you will also continue in place of that into the planned activities. For more guidance on how to list it out with the date brackets separated into each of those, for example, current and planned, I recommend that you take a look at the dates breakdown. The link here will take you to the activity section in the guide. And so that'll give you the date breakdown for how to place your activity under the current and in the planned. And that's just very important. So that way it shows that the activity is continuous. And then just on how our application is, you'd have to list it out based on if you have been doing that activity or will do that activity up till the application deadline and what the schools will expect for you to do into your plan activities after the application deadline. Okay, let's see, what other questions do we have here? For the title, for each description, only 50 characters are allowed, but what should I focus on in the title of each description? Is this about the So is this the entry that or activity that you list under a specific section and you have your title there? Is that what you're referring to, or is this referring to the meaningful experiences? Just let me know because I know for the meaningful activities and the activities themselves, I believe those are different. It's been a while since I've seen the title of each of those, but just let me know so I can see what I can find out. But regarding, let me double check that again. What should you focus on for the title of each? Yeah, just let me know if you're referring to a specific activity under a category, or are you referring to just your meaningful activities in general. Um, where can we ask personalized questions on the application website again? So this will be in your TMDSAS application portal. So if you log in into your application portal, the top right hand corner, it'll have your name, your TMDSAS ID, and then it says send a message to TMDSAS. So if you click on that, you'll be able to compose your message. You'll be able to specify the topic. So if this is about coursework, activities, if at any point you decide to add more schools, you can specify that topic and subject line. And that way, our team will be able to go to that section of the application and be able to help you out. Okay. So should I include scholarships I received in the activity section? Which section should I add it? And should I add a description? So that's going to be up to you. However, you determine that these scholarships would fall under. I would want to emphasize that with activities, it's not necessarily about placing an activity in a category, whether whether that is going to be the right or wrong category. So this is going to be up to you. As the applicant, you make that determination. You decide where you want to place your activity under the category based on what you want to tell the schools. So ultimately, it's not about get your activities into the right category. That is not the way to approach this. The ultimately what you want to do is focus on your narrative, what you want to tell the schools, what your story is. So if you want to tell this a specific story to the schools, you can use the categories and the guidance that is listed under each to kind of help you determine where you can best place that activity. So if you believe that your scholarships would best go under either one of these categories, and you have your narrative to back that up, the schools are going to take it. They're going to believe you. They're going to say, okay, this person decided to place it under healthcare. And based on the description, it made sense. So I know it sounds a little scary and there's some uncertainty there with like feeling like this is more of up to your best judgment. Um, but it ultimately is since you are the expert of your activities. So I'm hoping that with the activities, you're not so much focused on placing the activity in the right category, um, and fearing that if you don't place it into the right category, it's going to be wrong and it's going to be looked frowned upon by the schools. The that is not the overall guidance that the schools or the deans themselves have mentioned in past series that we have here on this YouTube channel. It's been more of the applicant will make that determination and what you feel best fits your activity, depending on what you want to let the schools know. So I know that doesn't quite fully address that question, but I just did want to mention that with activities, that's kind of how it is. It's more about the focus should be more about what your narrative is and what you want to communicate about that activity that is going to help you make the determination where to best list the activity. And then based on what you want to tell the schools is what you should put into your description. So a general guidance or rule of thumb that the schools have given is the description will list values, lessons learned, things you did, etc., into that description that communicates what you want to tell the schools. So just I encourage you guys as you're thinking about where to list your activities, I encourage y'all to also be reflective. Reflect back on these activities and why these are important to you, why you're listing these in the first place, or why you want to include these in the first place into your activity. So that way, that can help you figure out, okay, this is what I took out of that activity. This is how I want to communicate it to the schools. Okay, now based on what I want to communicate, let me look at the guidance here in the application guide to see where I can best place this category. Um, and again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. The information in the application guide is guidance that can help you help you be able to figure that out, but it's not the end all be all. If you don't do it like this, you're going to get it wrong and your application is going to be tossed out. That is not going to happen. And I can reassure you that because I did ask the dental deans from a session that we had with the deans. It's believe the title is part of our admissions dean's corner series with the dental school deans, and I believe I asked them a similar question, well, is there such thing as an application getting tossed out? Um, and they laughed at me and they said no. So again, don't be. I hope you don't stress out too much about placing activities in the right category or what you need to place into that. I hope that gives a little bit of reassurance of how ultimately you do have the power to make the determination. And if you say this is where it goes, the schools are going to go with that as well. Okay, so moving on. So here we have residency. Additional residency documents were requested and are still pending. But I got an email that my official confirmation is that I am a non-resident. Should I appeal, wait for my documents to be reviewed? If you already received if the official confirmation, then at that point your documents have been considered in that confirmation process. So if you want to appeal this, you can. And in the appeal process, it'll also ask you to upload documentation and to be able to, you would actually need to list out here is how I established Texas residency. Here's my supporting documents. So if you would like to appeal that, then at that point, at this point in the process, since you've already received the official confirmation, if you're not happy with that, you can submit the residency appeal. Okay. So this question is about coursework. I took dual credit classes that lasted the full year. I can only list the semester in which the class was taken. Should I just list as fall 2020 for a class taken in uh, 2020 through 2021? Okay, so great question. So in this case, you for courses that were taken over a full year, you would actually need to list the course under the term in which you will receive the grade. So if you started this course in the fall 2020, but you didn't get your final grade until spring 2021, because that is when you completed the course, then you only need to list the course under spring 2021. Um, this is a situation that we often see with veterinary applicants who take I believe it's animal nutrition course at OSU. That is I believe it's an online full year course. And so in your colleges attended, you would list the school as OSU, attended from fall 2020 through spring 2021. And the terms attended, you will only list or only enter the spring 2021 term because um, that is a term in which you received your final grade and the only term that will have a course listed. So you don't have to list a fall 2020. I hope that answers your question. And no problem. That kind of question is an easy one, and I learned pretty quickly, so that's why I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to enter it. Okay, going back to activities, I was wondering about the titles of each activity. Should I put the location, role title, physician name for shadowing? Great question. So let's take a look at what the categories have for each of those to see what kind of information they give regarding the title. So let me just choose a random activity and take a look at that. So with the title, a lot of these categories they have something similar, indicating like what to put for the activity itself or like the title of the activity. So you could either indicate your role, your official title. It looks like you can put, where it was at, the location, or like the name of the clinic. Just anything that will show. It looks like overall you can list anything that shows um, like the overall like information about that activity. So it doesn't specify has to be this your role title doesn't specify it has to be like the name of the clinic. I think as long as any of these like identifying information is in that title, it'll allow the schools to be able to quickly tell what the activity is. So let's say, for example, for like a community engagement, you had something like you did uh, maybe let's say like or one of those. I'm thinking something like you volunteered at like a run for a charity, and your title could be like volunteer uh, fall break run in uh, Austin, Texas. It's kind of something that I can think of right now at the top of my head, but it just kind of gives, just something overall that just gives the schools a quick idea of what the activity is. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Um, let's see. I have a question. I think you answered this earlier, but for awards that we reviewed, or received multiple times, do we just enter them separately or list them in descriptions? How many times we got the award? Great question. So it's going to be kind of up to you how it makes sense. We have seen and we've received guidance on both enter it once and in the descriptions enter each term in which you received it, enter it the semesters that you received it if you only received it certain semesters. So for example, if you received Um, one that I can think of is like the Dean's Award. If you receive this every semester throughout all 4 years of your academic career at your undergrad, it makes sense that you only list it once and list it from the beginning term till the end, the last term that you received the award. And in the description, um, you can list the terms in which you received it. If throughout those 4 years you only received the award couple of semesters here and there, like maybe once your sophomore year, once junior, and then the last two of your senior year, you can opt to list it out separately if that makes sense for you because you receive this award sporadically and not throughout the whole 4 years. It's just on how you feel like you want to convey um, that award or how you want the schools to see that. Let's say maybe, for example, the final terms of your senior year is whenever you got it, and maybe you want to highlight, this was big for me. I implemented certain strategies that helped me do this, or this is how I improved from my freshman year, or whatever the case might be that you want to like tell the schools about that. Maybe um, that term was really difficult and you had other things, other responsibilities besides being in school. And so the fact that you got that award was super meaningful to you, and you want to tell the schools about that, then in that case, it makes sense that you list that out separately and you really talk about that description or like that activity and why it was super meaningful, what that meant for your academic career, your GPA, or your resiliency to be able to handle multiple things at a time and also still being able to focus on school, or to prove yourself that if you dedicated this amount of time to study it would it made a difference. It's ultimately what you want to tell the school, so it's your narrative. So if your narrative is, yeah, I definitely got this award every single semester, this is great, like you can list it out once. But if you have them sporadically that you receive them and you, for example, had a hard semester and you want to elaborate on that, and that's another opportunity that you can give the schools insight as to how your academic journey has been, you're also more than welcome to. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do that. So, and just be mindful that if you do choose to do that and list the second option of listing it once every semester, multiple times, make sure you don't copy and paste that, because I think that's where the schools don't want you to. I get, and that's kind of like the consensus that we have been hearing is, okay, it's up to you. You can take the liberty and freedom to enter your activities however you want, either all bundle up or separate. But what they don't want to see is copy pasting those descriptions if you're going to choose to list it out multiple times. That to them doesn't really read too well. If they're seeing the same activity listed multiple times with the same description. Um, it doesn't sound like they like to see that. So just be mindful of that. But overall, like, you do have that freedom to determine how you want to communicate that activity. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to this other last question that we have, because it is similar to the topic of activities, and I want to make sure that our questions are answered in a way that flows and um, makes sense. So for this one, we have a question about shadowing. So I plan to shadow a dentist in July, and I want to enter it in the dental experience. But in the dental experience section, it writes that we should not include expected future hours. Should I still enter? Let's take a look at the dental experience, because as far as with the application goes, the schools are aware that with current activities, you will have to not only list the hours that you have taken, but the ones that you do anticipate to take between, let's say in this instance, you won't start that activity yet. You haven't started it yet, so will start it in July. But from July through the right before the application deadline, which is October 31st, between that time you will be accumulating hours, and so you are expected to enter. And the current activities is kind of hard. I get it, to kind of explain, but overall, just in current activities, you will list the hours that you have taken. So, for example, if you did take this activity starting in April, you will account for those hours plus the ones that you will continue from at this point June until right before the application deadline. That is your overall current hours. So in this case, since you haven't started the activity, you will have to kind of estimate those hours. So even though those are expected future hours, it sounds like you will have to list hours that you estimate to enter from July through October 31st, because those are all encompassing your current activity hours. I hope that makes sense, but if not, you can always send us a message in the TMDSAS application portal. And so that way you can get additional guidance from our support team, who goes through the messages, replies to those, and be able to kind of give you guidance. You can also take a look at your activities to see what you have entered so far, if you have any additional questions. So now going into coursework, how do we enter our science courses from our post-bac programs? Programs um, are included in the BCPM calculation. Okay, so for post-bac programs, those are typically going to be the PB course type. So therefore, you will have the opportunity to enter various course areas. Um, so for course areas, just a side note, you can use the information that we have in the guide. With coursework, you'll take a look at the coursework definitions and PCR link. So I'll post that into the chat. Okay. So with the course areas, the guidance that is in that link, and I'm just going to answer this question as like a two-part. But in the first part is the course area. So um, if a course is listed as a prerequisite, so if it's for example, like a hard science class, that would be listed as a prerequisite. So you would use the course area for one of the prerequisites. And then that would also be calculated into your science GPA because it is like a hard science. So BCPM GPA is biology, chemistry, physics, and math. So any course that is at least 50% or more focused in the biology, chemistry, physics, or math, for example, the hard sciences, hard math, I guess, in this case. So all those classes would be considered into the science GPA. So to get an idea of what courses could fall under that BCPM GPA, we do have that information listed here, and I'll link it into the chat. Okay, so that'll give you an idea of which courses could fall under or can be categorized under the BCPM GPA based on it being science and or math. If a course is a non-science, obviously that's not going to count into your BCPM GPA. I know with postbac courses, a lot of courses could fall under the other science or non-science. So if there's a course that is listed as other science, it may or may not be listed as included as part of the BCPM GPA. So if you have any questions specifically about um, s- certain courses that you perhaps already entered in, that you already entered in your application, you already submitted, and you're not sure if that is counting into your BCPM GPA, you can always send a message into your portal asking um, my I'm asking about this course. It is listed under this term, under this school. Is there any way I can find out if this is included into my BCPM GPA? And our team will be happy to help and be able to locate that course and be able to give you insight as to whether it counts as a BCPM GPA or not. Okay. Let's see if I have any other coursework questions here. Okay. We took an on-ramps class from UT in high school. Do I put that with my UT credits, but put a term from high school and put DC? That's a great question. I know this isn't the first time that we've seen questions about on-ramps. At the current moment, though, I am blanking out, unfortunately. So I don't quite remember how it would be listed under your application since it is part of your high school. I Yeah, I don't want to give you the wrong information. But I do remember getting these types of questions, so I know that we know how to give guidance on being able to enter that. Unfortunately, right now I am blanking out, and I can't quite remember what the guidance is for this specific type of course. So I'm so sorry, and go ahead and just send a message in your portal so that way we can have a team member take a look at that. I may be able to remember and go back and look for your message and be able to give some guidance. But right now, at the top of my head, I don't remember what that looks like. So, um, sorry about that. But if you have any further questions about any other courses, I can do my best to answer those for you. Okay. So, going back to activities, if we have something that can be listed for two different activities, such as leadership or employment, do we do both or do we pick and choose where to put it? Great question. With the activities, um, the guidance is list activities only once under one category and choose like pick the category and that's it. There are certain activities that you can list under multiple sections or categories, sorry. And so there are exceptions to that rule. So let me also link that for you because we do have that in the application guide as well. cannot spell today. Yeah, and it's just cannot spell today. But anyway, we got it on there. If you take a look at the link in the chat, that's going to take you straight to the section in the application guide that talks about the exceptions to that rule. So the rule is only list your activity once under one category. Once you pick it, like that's just list it once. There are three exceptions to that rule. So you can take a look at it for yourself and the link that is listed into the chat. Um, and what that is saying is healthcare and employment are an exception to the rule. So an activity can be listed in both categories if the experience was paid, emphasis on paid, and if it's both under the healthcare and employment. So if you had, for example, there's a lot of applicants who have an activity where it's part of healthcare, but they also were employed there. That is a situation in which that is an exception to the rule, and you can list that activity under multiple categories. For in this case, the health only when it comes to the healthcare and employment. Dental applicants, that also applies to you if it's dental and employment. You can also list that activity under those two categories. Um, Again, be mindful of the descriptions though. So the guidance that is in the guide reads, even though these activities can be entered in both sections, make sure the descriptions discuss the aspect of the experience. Do not copy and paste the same description. So for example, as a scribe, under the employment category description, you can list the aspect of that activity that discussed your employment. So perhaps what you did as an employee for your time there under the employment activity, that's what your description should focus on, is the employment aspect. While the healthcare section description may see more information about the experiences and doctors that you may have worked with. So just make sure that you tailor those descriptions to um, the category in which it goes to, so you're not copying and pasting. Again, remember the schools don't want to see you copy pasting descriptions multiple times. So they are okay with seeing activities listed under healthcare and employment, even if it's from the same activity. Just make sure that those descriptions are tailored to those specific categories. Um, Another exception to the rule is leadership. So if you had an activity, any activity that resulted in a leadership role, it may be entered under both categories, such as leadership and the other category. Let's say you have a community engagement activity that also resulted in a leadership position or role, whether you were like the lead volunteer coordinator resulted from being in that community engagement activity, or in your community engagement activity, there was something that you initiated, spearheaded that shows leadership skill, and you can talk about that under the leadership activity. Again, list that into the leadership and the community engagement. But whenever you talk about those descriptions, you write out your descriptions, make sure it's only talking about those specific aspects. So, any if that community engagement activity resulted in a leadership um, role or skill that came up from that, in that leadership description, only talk about that. Don't talk about the community engagement piece that will be in the description of your community engagement. So I hope that makes sense. Again, if you need to review this on your end, you can go to the link that was pasted into the chat. I just read what was on the page, but if you want to refer back to it and see it in writing, that is a good way to take a look at it and just kind of like a good reminder, like, oh yeah, I can list this activity if it's resulted from healthcare and employment. I can list it multiple times into each of those categories. And then there's that example of what my focus should be in that description under each of those categories. Okay, so let me check and see if we have any other questions. Okay. took a dual credit course during high school, but the credit's not on my college transcript. Would I have to enter this even though it's not on my transcript? I believe in this case you are referring to your main institution transcript. In that case, it will not give you the information that you need to enter this course. Dual credit courses, you must follow what's on the community college transcript that gave you the credit for that dual credit course. I'm almost pretty sure, like close to 100% that the community college transcript will give you the information about your dual credit course. Because yes, this does need to be listed under your college coursework. However, the main institution transcript will not give you the information you need to enter that course correctly. You will have to use, and actually all dual credit courses must be entered exactly as it appears on the community college transcript that gave you the credit for that course. If you've listed as what shows up on your main institution, either one, you will leave it out, or two, it will cause unnecessary problems down in the future. Because what the main institution transcript does, it changes the course. It probably shows it as a transfer credit, gives you a credit grade for college course, changes the prefix. It's a hot mess. So, uh, when entering dual credit courses, please just use your community college transcript to help you enter the course. If you need additional information or guidance or something that you want to refer to, if you forget what was talked about in this office hour regarding dual credit courses, we do have a link in the application guide that takes you specifically to that section that tells you exactly how to enter your dual credit courses. Okay, so let's see where we are at. Okay, we have a few minutes left, so I'm gonna try to see if I can um, go through questions a lot quicker, so I can make sure that we get through everyone's questions. Let's see. Okay, I think this is similar to the question that we answered earlier about full year courses. So, okay. Um, the reason why it's not letting you save and continue on is because you have a fall semester that you enter courses and you have a spring semester or spring term that you didn't list any courses. So that is the reason why the page is not letting you save. It's not letting you save it and proceed with the rest of the application. So whenever you have full long courses, you want to enter your courses under the term in which you received your final grade. So if you, um, let's say that you, in this case, you received those final grades in the fall, um, you did that right in entering the courses under the fall semester. However, because there's nothing listed in the spring, you're going to get that error message. Under terms attended, you can go ahead and remove that term um, from the terms attended section, which is okay because under colleges attended, your attendance dates do encompass the spring term as well. So that'll let the schools know that you um, were in that school from that fall to the spring, but in regards to your coursework, you had those courses and you had the final grades at the end of that fall term. So it's okay if you don't have that spring term. And in this case, it's fine because the system will flag it as error because there's no courses listed under that term. That's the logic behind the application itself and why it's giving you that error message. Okay. So this is a great question when it comes to AP credits. So with AP credits, if you got a lot of times schools in the transcript will have something super generic, like one dash bio, intro to bio, or biology one, um, or uh, let's say you didn't have the number, but you did have the prefix. It's a bio AP credit or something like that. That's in an instance where you would just list it as other science because in order for a course, or in this case, an AP credit to count as a prerequisite, is that it needs to have a course breakdown. What that means is it needs to have a prefix, it has to have a course number, it has to have a course title, your credit hours, and all AP credit grades are going to be CR for credit. So if you don't have the course breakdown um, fully, then you could list it as other science or non-science. And then, but if you do, or if you want to double check, you would go under, you would click on course listings. With course listings, that is just a reference of what has already been processed and reviewed here at TMDSAS based on what past applicants have brought with them. So this course listing is informed by that and also by pre-health advisors who provide that information. So TMDSAS doesn't take this information and just kind of like make it up. We do get that information from pre-health advisors. So if your school, let's say that your school gave you your credit for your AP credit for biology 121, that was worth three lecture hours, and you go to your course listing for your school, and that Bio 121 is listed as an approved course under the course listings. That just means that that is a course that has already been reviewed, that will meet the prerequisites. That information was what the school gave us, or based on past application information about courses. And so if your AP credit was you were giving that credit because it was equivalent of that course Bio 121 at your school, then in that case you can list that as bio lecture. But if you don't have that information or you're not sure, you can list that as other science or non-science. Ultimately, don't stress about getting it right or wrong in this case. Just because, and I say that just because there are, um, once you submit your application, um, let me backtrack. So whenever you're filling out your application and you're entering this information, it is based on the information. What you are using is the guidance that is provided in the guide. So for example, the course definitions and classifications definitions. I linked it in the chat earlier, but based on that information, you enter your courses as best to your knowledge, best of your ability, based on that information. Whenever you submit your application, that is reviewed by a human eventually. So the human would review your courses, making sure everything is all the course areas are correct, accurate. They'll make adjustments if needed, and that is based on the course listings, course information, and definitions that they are also looking at to confirm, okay, yeah, this course, oh, actually, this course should fall under a prerequisite. So it's going to be checked on. And even if there's afterwards, once your application has been sent out to the schools, and maybe perhaps there is a course that you believe should also count as a prerequisite, or was it doesn't have the correct course area that you believe it should have, you can always send a message to ask about that and see if that is something that would count as whatever it is that you're wanting it to count or not, and just get an overall guidance as to what that would be, or what the outcome of that course area should be. So with your AP credits, again, just use the resources that are available to you based on the course listings. Which again, if your school doesn't show up on there, like also don't stress. That doesn't mean that those courses won't count or are not allowed. That's that's not what that means. Use what you have. If it's not on there, use the course definitions. If you're still unsure, then just do your best to make that determination. You will not be penalized if those are incorrect. Again, a human will check your work once the application is submitted. Okay, so I know I rented or gave a little bit more information or context with that last question. So very quickly, I'm going to breeze through these last ones just to make sure we cover everything. As I'm just going to start from the bottom up. So with if we only took less than 30 hours for our first year, do we put freshman again for all the courses in the second year term? Do summer classes and transfer credits count in the 30 hours? Great question. So the general rule of thumb is that your first 30 credit hours at your main institution will be freshmen. This is true if it's at a four-year university or if you started at a community college doing your basics in the what is considered your freshman and sophomore year. Those first 30 hours will count as freshmen. Anything that you took before then, so AP credit, dual credit, all of those are pre-freshmen, don't count into the 30 hours. Your summer classes, if you, let's say it's freshman year for fall, so fall is freshman year, spring is freshman year. That summer term can also count towards your freshman year, and you can continue to list those as freshmen as well. So I know, for instance, some people take four classes in the fall, four in the spring, so that equals out to 24. And then your remaining hours that you took in this summer can also count towards those 30 and be included in your freshman academic status. Okay, let's see. A lot of these look very familiar, so I'm trying to make sure that I can read through these and point or pick out the ones that we haven't discussed already. Okay, zero credit courses. My best recommendation. Okay. Um, this link will take you to the page in the guide that gives you the exact information you need to determine whether that zero credit hour course needs to be listed or not. Um, because it's typically if it was like a class that you took in your freshman year, like seminar or something like that, you don't have to list it because it's worth zero credits. You weren't given any grades or credit for it. But if it's a repeat course that you had to take for a better grade, there's those areas as well, and that section of the guide will quickly give you like a quick little snippet of how to make that determination whether you have to list it or not. So that's why I'm gonna just give you the link. Okay, let's see. Okay, so for our last question, I got a BS and a BA at the same time. When I first started the application, it told me to only input one and then to put the second degree in academic achievement section. Okay. Yeah, so that information was actually updated just on the way the structure of the application is. Um, the Basically, you would have to split up when you have a BS and a BA, you have to split up your coursework. So if you have, let's say it was a bachelor's of science in biology and bachelor's of arts in Spanish, for example, then in that case, you're earning your courses at the same time or your degree at the same time. You'd split up your courses. So in the fall semester, if you had two Spanish classes and three bio, then you would split those. So under the BS, it's helpful to enter one degree at a time. So if you did the BS first, list your science courses under each of those terms, and then whenever you list out your art degree type, Bachelor's of Arts degree type, then you list out the courses that were only for that Spanish degree. So you would have to split it up, and it's helpful to do one degree type at a time, not trying to do them both together. Otherwise, in the application, it says fall 2020, fall 2020, and it can be confusing to determine which one is for which degree type. So if you have any further questions, though, I do recommend that you send a message in your portal. That way we can have a team member help you out and being able to list that accurately in your application. It is 2 o'clock, so I want to make sure that we are respectful of everyone's time. But I do thank you all for asking great questions, being engaging. And then, yeah, just make sure that you tune in into our next session. Not next Wednesday. We are not going to be here next Wednesday, but the next session would be on the 26th. So if you have any questions in the meantime, between now and next Wednesday, the 26th, send us a message in your portal and our team will be able to help you out with that. Thank you. I hope you all have a great day and good luck with this journey and filling out your application. Bye, everyone.